This is my learning philosophy 2.0. I took some time and looked back over my first learning philosophy, and I still definitely believe that learning is an acquired skill or knowledge that you have and that you use to perform some sort of task or to create some sort of product. That hasn't changed since we did this in the beginning of the course. What sort of has changed, as I look at a couple notes that I have set on my side here, is that when it comes to learning, there is no necessary mandate on how long you have to hold on to this knowledge that you have created. And I think that, obviously in the traditional classroom, you definitely need to hold on to it long enough so that you can, complete a worksheet or take a quiz or a test or something along those lines. But as I look at education today and I look at the standardized tests that students are expected to pass, more and more I really just simply disagree with the fact that you give a kid a trivial test, you ask them some comprehensive questions, and that's the sole thing that you use to determine whether or not kids are going to graduate and get a diploma. Seems a little minimal in my book, especially with technology, and the internet and the ease in which you can recall information. I think students would be better served to have to display to educators that not only do they know some of the basic information. I don't think we should completely get away with holding students accountable for knowing major concepts and things along those lines, but at the same time students need to display that they have the skills in order to go back and find the information that you've once learned that you can no longer recall simply on your own. And so I think that has been one major way that my philosophy has changed, that there needs to be a greater emphasis on skills, and that somebody who can just sit there and recite fact after fact after fact doesn't necessarily mean that person is smarter than a person who can sit down at an internet and within a couple seconds have the information right at their fingertips. You refresh your mind, and you go ahead and perform tasks that you need to. So when it comes to this whole acquisition of knowledge or finding information that you once had locked upstairs that you now rely on technology to help refresh you on, the role that the teacher really needs to play is that the teacher is no longer also the wealth of knowledge. And I've experienced this a couple times myself. I've been asked to teach some courses that I don't have a really strong background in, comparative religions as an example. And what I try to do is not to present myself as the master of religion when it comes to teaching this course. Instead, I gave students, I fostered activities for students to take part in. I gave them situations in which they, were needing to perform some sort of task, and really just acted as a guide and showed students places where they could get the information, and then allowed students to go and obtain the information themselves. And when they hit, stumbling blocks along the way, that's when I stepped in to help them overcome those stumbling blocks, or to help them make sense of something that, they weren't really sure about. And in the meantime, then, it was difficult for students because some of these students that I had in this course last year were brought up in very traditional types of classrooms where, there was a lot of lecture. It was very, teacher oriented rather than student oriented, and so they kind of struggled with that as well. I think in the end they got a little bit better at it. I think down the line, when these were primarily juniors and seniors, when those juniors and seniors make it into college, and the training wheels come off even more so, and the college professors certainly are going to hold your hand a lot less than than a high school teacher would. I think those kids will be better prepared because they're used to that independence, and more of an emphasis being placed on them finding the information and them doing the majority of the work, which is the teacher acting as a guide. And so, that to me really is is my philosophy on learning. I think you learn best by you doing something. It's got to be, you know, the weight of learning needs to really be on students, not on parents, not on teachers. And I think that's one area where perhaps, you know, the American educational system is going in the wrong direction, especially with the way in which we are determining whether or not a teacher is a good teacher, looking at, you know, how somebody else performs and then